These they're called I forgot the name of them, but they are the ones that are very, very malevolent, very peaceful.
Sure. And bro, you
And they
have
live they have a hive mind.
mhm,
So does the draconians too, though. The reptilians that came from draconi have a hive mind too. That's why they have 7 domes on planet Venus, but they have 7 species and they don't mix because they have like a hive. It's like bees have soldiers, they have workers, like that kind of thing.
specific ranks, right?
Right.
Hmm. All right. And bro, did you have accounts? Because did you have accounts of of those beings being on Mars?
I only had, well, I could say 2, but only one.
Hmm.
One was when I was in the military. I went into a building, and when I went downstairs in the building, the only thing I saw was like Nazi symbols in the middle of the floor
Yeah.
and a secret room where they congregated. I wouldn't say that was an encounter really, but the one encounter that I did have was out in Brooklyn at the African Street Festival. And I'm standing there and I'm talking to Hakeem Bey. I don't know if you've heard of him,
Of course. Yeah.
and some other Moors. And all of a sudden, and had like a really bad smell. I was like, "What is that?" As soon as I said that, a whirlwind came up out of the ground. You know, how sometimes you walk by and
Yeah.
you see a whirlwind in the street.
Yeah.
The whirlwind came up out of the ground, went up into the air, and went into a bunch of trees, and the trees went shh, and it stopped in one tree. And all I could see is like an outline. I couldn't really see like a being or anything like that. But what else could the fuck else could that be?
Yeah.
And the smell went away. So I don't know what kind of smell that was, like dead flesh or something like that.
Mm.
And at the time, I was more into my cultural type voodoo stuff,
Mhm.
and I thought it was like a spirit or a ghost of somebody who had died there,
Yeah.
and I had somehow released it. But then when I think about it, I remember in my teachings and in my learning that some entities use whirlwinds to travel on so they don't expend any energy. But I couldn't, like, if it's on the stayed on the ground, I wouldn't think nothing of it. It's just a little wind blowing on the ground in a circle.
I
But
got you.
this thing lifted up and like a little tornado and went up into the trees. And I said, "Oh snap!" Everybody just stood there. Look, don't look at me, nigga. That ain't.
And was it like the movie Predator? You remember? He wasn't. He was almost invisible, but he could.
Yes, it was almost invisible, but not. The only reason why I was able to see it is because when I went to the trees, you saw like leaves and stuff outlined, like
Mhm.
the outline from the leaves and stuff.
I
And
got
I
you.
said, "Oh, now I was in shock. I didn't know who to talk to or nothing because nobody really was into that stuff. So I said,
Okay.
okay, that's just me. And I probably had a couple of others that I don't remember. Let me
Well,
see.
bro,
Yeah.
while we're at it, could you share one or two mystical or metaphysical events that you know uh that's like you probably didn't share before because the audience would say what are you talking about, you know what I'm saying? So
Bro, it's so I can't even remember all the stuff that I mean, it's just so much stuff. I would have to try to remember what it was, or when, how, what, where. It's just so much of it that's why I'm on the path that I'm on, because it's constantly happening.
no,
It's
really.
constantly happening. I can't pinpoint anything because it's almost normal to me now.
Yeah.
You know, like okay, one time I was lucid dreams. Oh my God! I mean, those are kind of scary to me. I can explain that, but I'm not gonna go into that when that was kind of long.
Yeah.
But then one time I was sleeping and an entity looks like Anubis came up out of the ground, and he had two tall beings with him, and it scared the hell out of me. And I felt myself being pulled off the bed under the ground. Guardian angels like Melchizedek, like Michael. Michael, I know this sounds very Christian. Michael is one of the most powerful angels you could deal with. That is a powerful, powerful being. Let me tell you, everything was going wrong for me.
Yeah.
And that particular day. And I visualized Michael, 20 feet tall, flying over to me and saying, I got your back. And sure enough, miracles happened. Miracles happened. So it's all dealing with the mind also. But I can name numerous stories. I can't, if I can remember them all, I will let you know. But it's so much. And like I said, it's normal to me that it doesn't really register as something that I would tell people. And because you can't really talk to people anyway. So I kind of got into that mode. If you go to yes, that's Khoom. That is one of the beings from Khoom when they created the female. And most of the grays are beings that are slaves, most of them. There's probably one gray that's not a slave, one or two, but the most grays are slaves. And the female was created we're talking about eons ago, eons. There's even a picture of a woman found on the moon in a spaceship. You ever seen that picture?
I don't recall, bro.
When you get off the thing with me, you better go and check that shit out, man. It's a real picture of a female found. And like I said, Khoom, they were the ultimate beings that descended down from the Christ consciousness. And they separated and made, not only them, but the reptilians did this too, separated themselves and created man and woman. Okay, and Khoom was the main planet from which all the other planets descended from, Lyrae, which is also in part of the Draconian star system.
Sounds good. Perfect. So next one. That's a good one, actually. Yeah.
That's Earth.
Yeah.
Tellurium is Earth, and that's Earth when it was a total water planet. When it was before Lemuria, before Atlantis, the water was purple. Everything was purple, and it began to change to blue based upon what I talked about earlier, when the atmosphere of Mars was pulled off of Earth and onto that planet. But Tellurium was one of the original names, which means to terraform, to change. And so by this time, dolphins had already extended themselves to this particular planet, and the dolphins proceeded to create whales, which whales have 7 chakras, like a human, but the dolphins have 8 chakras.
Right. And bro, it reminds me of something. I did not experience it, but my great aunt seen in the island actually a mermaid. Would you have any intels on the mermaid, since you talk about the dolphins? Would you have any intels on the mermaids?
Yes, the race that now lives on um, uh, Neptune are the amphibians. They were also on Earth. And they didn't want part of this conflict that was going on. So they went through a Stargate to, Neptune and Triton. They were the amphibians. but experiments were being carried out, and this is why they left, was being carried out by reptiles and other species, merging the genetics of the fish or the amphibians with mammalian DNA. This came about as alligators. This came about as mermaids, and quite a few other. There's a lot of alien, bro. There's what 100 billion universes out there. So you have these different races. There's actually a race called the vegans.
Yep.
So the vegans, and I said, okay, these people what's wrong with vegetarian or fruitarian? Why are you calling yourself vegan? Even that means they have the genetics in their DNA.
Yep.
So
And bro,
yeah.
I've been there and it's fantastic, man.
Yeah.
Vega. I could probably, describe it with a painting, but yeah, it is something. It's different. It's not and yeah, what I'm saying?
You should paint it.
Probably, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you should.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the artwork you're showing now.
Yeah.
I said, look, let me just go ahead and, based on the documentation that I got.
Yeah.
This is all from documentation that I got from all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just watching David Icke or who else is there. All these guys talking about it.
Yeah.
If you notice, I'm not saying the same thing they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. York and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I never read a Dr. York book.
Mm-hmm.
I never read a David Icke book. I never read. The only book I think I've ever read was Peter Moon. But me and Al Bielek from the Philadelphia Experiment,
yeah,
Preston Nichols, we used to sit down and have conversations about this. And Phil Valentine.